If you're watching this video, you probably know by now that earning the CFA charter is incredibly difficult but also very prestigious. Since it's a completely self-study program, it is relatively cheaper than like a university program or certainly than any MBA program out there. But that does not mean that it is cheap. You have an initial enrollment fee and then exam registration fees every time you register to take an exam. Then, if you're like me and you choose to utilize a third-party test prep provider, you're going to be paying anywhere from $500 to maybe $2,000 for every single exam that you sit for. And considering that most current CFA charter holders have failed around one exam on average, and that many candidates take multiple exams multiple times, if you do the math, it is theoretically possible to get through the whole CFA program and become a charter holder for only like $2,500 or $3,000 US, but that is not common. A fair guess might be that any candidate spends between $8,000 to $10,000 US throughout their candidacy in the CFA program and to become a charter holder. So getting scholarships for the CFA program can be extremely helpful. There are 6 different scholarships that the Institute makes available to candidates, and we'll get into the details on those later in this video. Each scholarship completely waives the $450 enrollment fee and then further reduces the exam registration fee for the exams each year. And one of the scholarships reduces that recurring exam registration fee more so than all the others do, so it can be important to consider which scholarship you apply for. It can also be good to know that 2 of these 6 scholarships have application windows, which is to say that you can only apply to them during a certain period of time. Those 2 scholarships are the Access Scholarship, which is the most common, and the Women's Scholarship. On my personal CFA Institute login, I can't see the details on these application windows since I'm already a charter holder, so they're not available to me. But there are various articles out there outlining the details of these scholarship windows, showing that to apply for these more common CFA scholarships for exams taking place in 2022, you need to be registered for that exam before September 15th of 2021, but there's a caveat here. Another source says that only candidates who are not yet registered for their upcoming exam are eligible for any of these scholarships. So please be sure to do your research and contact the CFA Institute about the details of any of the scholarships, especially ones that you're considering applying for, before you register for any exam or apply for that scholarship. Before we get into the details on all 6 of these scholarships, there are a few more points you should know. There are posts online right now written by some people who are in the know on this that claim that these scholarships are very undersubscribed to. It sounds like in some years the CFA Institute is left over with more money available to give out to people applying for these scholarships if more people just utilized them. You might be wondering if you're eligible to utilize any of these scholarships, and we'll get into more of the details on each of them here in a minute, but I want to make a point about the most common scholarship first, called the Access Scholarship. It looks to be income-based, but the CFA Institute explicitly says that there is no minimum or maximum amount of income or assets that you need to have to qualify for this. That claim makes me wonder how they can say that this scholarship is designed for people who may not be able to afford the program, but that's besides the point. You should just know that there are no specific numbers or hurdles that you need to be above or below to qualify for this. They do say, though, that if you receive financial assistance from your employer and they help cover any portion of the enrollment fee or each exam registration fee, then you no longer qualify for the Access Scholarship. But outside of that circumstance, it really can't hurt you to just apply and see if you get it. Now let's get into each of the 6, and just so you know, there is an assessment tool available on the CFA Institute's website that you can kind of fill out, give some information about yourself, and it will let you know which of these you may or may not be eligible for. I know we already covered a bit about the Access Scholarship, but it is the most common, and it also gives the biggest discount to the annual exam registration fee. It knocks that down to $250, where every other scholarship on this list will knock that down to $350, so you save an extra $100 here, and again, it seems to be loosely income-based. Next is the Women's Scholarship. The Institute says that this is for women who are interested in pursuing the CFA charter, are not eligible for any other scholarships on the list, and also have not yet registered for their next exam. While this one seems pretty straightforward because it just says you have to be a woman to apply for it, it is the only one that says you cannot be eligible for any of the other scholarships on the list. So if you're considering applying for this one, make sure you learn up on the next 4 scholarships that we're going to discuss shortly here, just so you're sure that you don't need to apply for one of those first, and you can just go ahead and jump into the Women's Scholarship. The Student Scholarship is available to anyone who is currently attending one of these affiliated universities. There are almost 700 universities on this list, so I'm not going to scroll through all of them in this video, but there's a tool available on the Institute's website to see which colleges and universities are on this affiliated list, so make sure to check that out. Just in preparing for this video, I searched some universities that I was curious about, and I was surprised to see some smaller schools in my area that were on this affiliated list. But I was even more surprised to see some schools that were not on this list that are really considered to be like the most prestigious business schools in my part of the country. And like most of the scholarships other than the Access, this one reduces the annual exam registration fee to $350. Next is the Professor Scholarship, which is for full-time college or university professors or administrators or department heads that actually teach students a minimum number of credit hours at qualified institutions who also have not yet registered for their next CFA exam. The term qualified institutions here does not refer to the previously mentioned list of affiliated universities. And my understanding is that basically any college or university in the world will count as qualified. But there are some pretty specific requirements when submitting your request for this scholarship, including writing a letter on university letterhead and your university ID and a few other things like that. Number 5 is the Regulator Scholarship. And this is available for employees of financial regulators, central banks, securities commissions, qualifying stock exchanges, SROs, and other government entities. Now, those categories seem very general, but in the very next breath, the Institute says that this specifically only applies to entities that oversee or regulate operations, standards of practice or business conduct of the investment management industry in which have entered into a program agreement with the CFA Institute. I have not been able to find a list of employers who have a program agreement with the Institute anywhere on their website or anywhere else on the internet. So if you're considering applying for this Regulator Scholarship, I definitely recommend calling the Institute well in advance of doing that to try to get an understanding on if your employer has this program agreement with the Institute so that you will know if you're eligible or not. Finally, we have the Media Scholarship, which is for employees of media organizations that communicate and distribute financial news, data, and education and have not yet registered for their next CFA exam. Now you know what the scholarships are, which ones you may be eligible for. Let's say you apply for one of these and you're accepted. Now what do you need to do? If you're awarded a CFA Institute scholarship, there are 2 important dates to keep in mind. You must now register for your next CFA exam to take at some point within the time frame provided by your scholarship. And importantly, you must complete this registration before the scholarship expires, which is listed as the expiration date on the bottom of the email you received in your scholarship award. Your profile on your CFA Institute login will reflect the scholarship when you look at your costs in your next exam registration, but also know that if you want to get the print version of the CFA curriculum when you sign up, you still have to pay the extra $100 or $150 to get that. For each future exam, candidates must apply for and be accepted again for that same scholarship. If you fail to sit for an exam that you registered for at a discounted price using one of the scholarships, then in addition to failing that exam, you also will no longer be eligible to apply for any scholarships from the CFA Institute in the future. The decision to award you with a scholarship or not is made by the CFA Institute in conjunction with your local CFA society. So that means it may be beneficial to you to be involved in the local CFA society, just in the case that you need to provide some information about the society's events or how you've been involved with the society on a scholarship application. And certainly, if you're familiar with any of the members of the CFA society that could potentially be reviewing your scholarship application, that could really help out your chances of getting awarded it. Now, I already mentioned that I was never eligible for any of these scholarships because my employer was paying for my exam registration fees, and I probably would not have applied for any of them even if I was eligible at the time because I didn't really know about them anyway. But from what I've heard and based on what I've learned recently, these scholarships are not all that difficult to get, and they want to give out more than they already are, so you really should be trying to utilize them in any way that you can. To me, these seem a lot like fast food restaurants mailing coupons to people in neighborhoods. It's just like, if you're going to put in the effort to actually bring the coupon into the restaurant, then sure, they'll give you the food for a cheaper price. Relative to most other educational financial aid programs, at least in the United States, the application standards for these scholarships seem really low. So in my opinion, the Institute's kind of just going, okay, who should we give it to? Yes, no, yes, no. Again, the Access Scholarship, which is designed to make the program more affordable, doesn't have any income or asset maximums. So a lot of people are going to be eligible for these things. It'll probably take you like 5 or 10 minutes to submit an application for it. So there's really no reason not to. Thanks for watching the whole video. I would really appreciate it if you also like this and subscribe to the channel. Those things help me out a lot and they keep the channel moving in the right direction. So as always, thanks for watching.